If you're interested in a brilliant introduction to Pope Francis's Encyclical Laudato Si on care for our common home, stay tuned as Faithworks interviews Dan Misleh, Executive Director of the Catholic Climate Covenant in Washington, D.C., who knows all about it. Hello again, I'm Jim Grant, and very glad to welcome you to another edition of Faithworks. Today my guest is Dan Misleh, who is the Executive Director of Catholic Climate Covenant. He comes to us all the way from Washington, D.C., and was here for a very important gathering in Sacramento, which he'll tell us about very soon. But he stayed long enough to visit our diocese, to come and be on this program, and to speak at the St. Paul Catholic Newman Center over this wonderful experience of the Day of Prayer for Care of Creation. Dan, could you just tell us a little bit about Catholic Climate Covenant and what brought you to our beautiful state to be here for our program?
Sure. So Catholic Climate Covenant's been around for 9 years. Started in 2006. I had been working at the Bishops' Conference in Washington, and really my children got me involved in this issue. I was thinking about how, their future, and I began to learn a little bit about the climate change issue, and so we began the Catholic Climate Covenant in 2006 with the support of the Bishops' Conference and a very generous funder, so that's how it got started. And I came here yesterday at the invitation of the California Catholic Conference we did two things. We had a press conference where Bishop Stephen Blair of Stockton and Bishop Jaime Soto of Sacramento were with the Senate Pro Tem to talk about Laudato Si and what it means for the state of California. Then later in the day we had a 2-hour dialogue with legislators to talk about Laudato Si. So it was really quite remarkable.
It really was, and I know we went to see the office of Henry T. Perea, who would have been one of those legislators involved in the need to vote for a certain bill that we're not going to mention right now. We also have been in touch with Assemblyman Patterson, because it's very important that our legislators know the Catholic mind on these bills, and we thank you for coming all the way from the Capitol to be at our state capitol for this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Now, when we go to your website, which is really remarkable, CatholicClimateCovenant.org, I'd like to walk through it, if you could, Dan, and
Sure.
Tell us why there is something on every single one of the links. You've got ACT, as if we're supposed to do something. You mentioned St. Francis Pledge, advocacy, reducing your footprint, and the beautiful Feast of St. Francis. Tell us a little bit about any of that part of the website.
Sure. So we have lots of resources on CatholicClimateCovenant.org. So we have things for individuals, for parishes, for youth groups. We have education programs. We have the Feast of St. Francis initiative, this is our 4th year. That's coming up. We'll be looking at that tonight, in fact, at the Newman Center. So that'll be exciting. We have all kinds of ways for people to reduce their energy use, individual tips about recycling and, maybe drive less and walk more and all of those kinds of things. We also have a program operating here in the state of California with the Diocese of Stockton, where we're encouraging parishioners to install solar on their roofs in exchange for a referral fee from the solar company that then is, half of that money goes to the parish, a quarter of it goes to support the work of Catholic Charities of Stockton, and a quarter of it comes to us. So we're exploring all kinds of things to try to help Catholics live more fully their faith, especially with regards to the environment.
When you mentioned Stockton, we know that Bishop Blair and Bishop Ochoa are very much wanting to commit to the same issues. We are sister dioceses. We have the same type of demographic, the same type of agricultural environment, the same effects of the drought, the same economy, sort of. So we are really glad that Caitlin Redner-Sutter is leading the environmental justice component up there, and we are hoping to partner with her and with Bishop Blair in the future.
That's great.
Now, regarding partnerships like that one that I think we're going to develop in our diocese, you have partners. I'm going to mention some of the ways that you have created like a real coalition. You've got what you call covenant members, creation care teams, Catholic climate ambassadors, and other faith groups. So who are some of these people, and how are they affiliated with your particular ministry?
Sure. So well, let's take the Catholic Climate Ambassadors. So several years ago, we trained 24 Catholics from around the country in various, mostly lay Catholics, and we asked them to commit to presenting authentic Catholic teaching on climate change around the country. So they've been doing that for the last several years. Our partners include 14 national Catholic organizations, the Bishops' Conference, Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Charities USA, Catholic Rural Life, Catholic Health Association, a bunch of others. You can find them on our website. But each of those organizations is trying to figure out how they can implement climate change activities in ways that make sense to themselves. So what we're really trying to do is, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to massively grow our own network, but we're trying to use their networks to get the message out about Laudato Si, about care for creation, and care for the poor, people who are impacted by this.
Everything you just said just leads us to Catholic Relief Services, which is one of our favorite agencies to be able to be partnering with. Why don't we play that clip? Do you want to walk us into this brand new Catholic Social Teaching 101, the brand new clip, Dan?
Sure. So CRS is developing 7 of these types of clips, and the first one out of the box for the day that we pray for creation, as Pope Francis has asked us to do, is on the environment. So let's take a look.
So here's a little thought experiment. Imagine that I spent a lot of time making a gift for you, or spent a lot of time shopping for it, and I wrapped it up and gave it to you with a great deal of intention, and then you ended up stepping on it or throwing it out. How do you think that would make me feel? Well, that's essentially the idea behind caring for creation. God has given us this beautiful and gracious gift, and it's up to us to care for it and to respect it and to reverence it for the gift that it is.
When we care for the environment, we care for the bounty of the Lord. And that bounty is given to every one of us, not just some of us, but every one of us to enjoy and to sustain our needs.
The support system of human life. That's what the environment turns out to be. It's what produces food, the air to breathe, the water or the rain to fall and to water. Our life is so bound with creation that we're bound to respect it if it is also to serve us.
Because creation is a gift from God, we're asked to steward it. The book of Genesis asks us to keep and till the natural world. And sadly, we've done a very good job tilling it, but not such a great job keeping it.
When creation suffers, it hurts most the poorest of people. Poor people generally have to depend so much more on the water, on the climate, because that's how they make their livings. They are very vulnerable to climate change. Think about farmers. If there is a 2 or 3 degrees increase in temperature, then people cannot grow the same thing in the same area. So the care for creation translates directly into the care for our brothers and sisters.
Laudato Si calls all of us to care for the natural world. Now the call and how we live it out depends on who we are. If we're a young person, it may mean something as simple as recycling or consuming less. If we're an adult, it may mean making decisions in our corporation and at our workplace that affect the environment in a more positive way, and especially making decisions that take into account the needs of the poor.
Caring for creation, it calls for a certain kind of a unity or reciprocal relationship between man and his environment. We receive the earth as a garden. It will be very unfair if we pass on the earth as a wilderness.
It's stunning, it's beautiful, it's so short, and it's so powerful. Yeah. What more do you want to say about what Catholic Relief is doing about the Encyclical and about their own way to witness to Pope Francis beyond the encyclical?
Yeah, well, Catholic Relief Services, they're operating in 100 countries around the world. Their staff all over the world are seeing this tremendous impact of climate change. And as Dr. Carolyn Wu said in the video, you know, for a lot of people around the world who are subsistence farmers or you know, live you know, hand to mouth almost, a drought or a significant flood that could wipe out their crops is really life and death. So those issues for them, the issues of this changing climate, really has a very grave impact on them. And so that's what they're seeing all over the world. Years of relief and development work are being threatened by these, you know, these changes in our weather patterns.
What we are going to be doing at the diocese is trying to show you week by week and day by day on our website at knxt.tv and dioceseoffresno.org, all these realities. They're all gifts visually from CRS and from CatholicClimateCovenant.org. So you will be seeing little clips like this that might help us participate better in what is our task. As the Pope says, it's our responsibility. One thing about the website that most websites say, oh, we have great resources, but I will admit, yours is extraordinary. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you've been able to assemble so many powerful, useful, very, very practical resources. One would be about the encyclical, about Laudato Si. What do you have for us, Dan?
Well, so obviously we have the page of quotes, and you know, not all of these were produced by us. We have a tremendously talented staff, but we also rely on, as you saw, for Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Bishops' Conference, so they're also producing materials. So some of those we capture on our website, some of them we have produced ourselves. But as you said earlier, there are things in there for liturgy. There are pieces in there for, you know, adult education. We have a program for youth called Friending Planet Earth. We're developing a new program with Renew International that they do a lot of small faith community education programs on Laudato Si. That'll be rolled out in December. So there's just lots of, just go and explore and have fun looking at all of the different things we have on the website.
One thing says individual and group study guides.
Right.
Who produced and how were they effective?
Well, so we do a number of things in that area. So in the group area, we worked with, as I said, Renew International, but even before that with Just Faith, and we developed a program with Just Faith called Just Matters, and it's about care for creation. I believe that's still available. We have, again, programs for young people. We have the Feast of St. Francis program that we'll be doing tonight. So, and those programs are available for the last 3 years, and they can be done anytime.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Feast of St. Francis is October 4th, but you can do it tomorrow, you can do it in April, whatever you would like. So even though because we love St. Francis, right? So we got to name it after St. Francis.
We really do. And on that happy note, we're going to take our 1-minute break, but please be right back because we have more from Dan and also another clip that was produced very recently, and it's going to bring this home right to the United States, right to an issue that is very much in our eyes if we would only open them. Stay tuned.
I think for a lot of us, when we think of climate change, we do think of something like the Carteret Islands, or we think of Africa or South America, but it's happening right here.
KNXT thanks all its loyal viewers and respected businesses who have supported your Catholic television station. Now you can support KNXT with program underwriting by having your name, your company's name, or organization associated with your favorite program. Detailed information about you or your company will appear before and after each program or day part you select. Keep the quality and spiritual message alive and make a difference. Call 559-488-7440 today or go online at knxt.tv to find out more about program underwriting on KNXT.
Welcome back to the second half of our very exciting Faithworks. Again, we have Dan Misleh coming all the way from Washington, D.C. by way of Sacramento to be with the CCC, California Catholic Conference of Bishops, yesterday, working with two of our brother bishops here in the state, Jaime Soto and Stephen Blair, all about Laudato Si. But today he's giving us the day to be with us, to share on KNXT, and also to be up at the Newman Center tonight for a program of Feast of St. Francis, which he has created. Getting back to those resources that you were telling us about, there's one that I wonder just what it is. I know when I have a toolkit, I know what it is. It's got a few things that I don't know how to use, but yours is called a sustainability toolkit.
Right.
So I'm sure it's much more functional.
Well, so one of our partners is the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities, and a lot of Catholic colleges and universities are working to green up their campuses. So we have 25, I think it's 25, it might be a few more at this point, Catholic colleges that have signed the St. Francis Pledge.
Oh,
So
cool.
committed to doing, to integrating all of those elements of the pledge, to pray, to learn, to act, to assess, to advocate within the university. So we worked with a bunch of partners, including the ACCU, to develop ways to do that. So how do you implement the St. Francis Pledge on a college campus? So that's what that's all about. So
Now, I'm going out on a limb here, and I hope I don't fall off. Boston College better be on that list, or they better get on that list, because that would be, there's only 25? We've got to,
we have some work to do.
we do, because we who go to Catholic schools better make sure our schools are doing this. This is great.
Well, and a lot of this is being driven by young people. I mean, young people are really all over this issue. And I would just add that if you want a great evangelization tool for young Catholics, whether they're Anglo, Hispanic, this is the issue. I think a lot of young people see their future as being bleak. They want to be able to do something about it, and we should support them.
Oh, definitely. And one way that you do support is with some visual aids.
That's right.
And it's not that everything has to be on video, because if it's not, no one will see it. I mean, they won't learn it if they don't see it. You can also read, you can also hear it on the radio. But some of your visual is some of the better stuff.
Right.
What can you say about the importance and how we could better access and also better use video material that's been produced?
Sure. So there's a number of videos on our website. I think the key to a good video is a story, telling a story of real human beings instead of just a statistic or a number, or this many people are suffering from this particular illness, or whatever that's going to be. I think it's always good to personalize it. And so we have a number of videos that show that, some very hopeful, some very heart-wrenching. When we did our first Feast of St. Francis program several years ago, we focused on this little island in the South Pacific called the Carterets. And the Diocese of Bougainville, which is a part of Papua New Guinea, the bishop there invited, their islands are sinking, climate change is impacting because of sea level rise, bigger storms. So they're essentially having to relocate 3,000 people from the Carteret Atoll Islands to the mainland. And the diocese offered up property to help resettle some of these people. So that's a really good news. I mean, it's sad that they're losing their ancestral home, but the Catholic Church is taking care of people in need here. So that really personalizes it, and that's told in about a 40-minute documentary video, which is just excellent.
Now, there's one that I'm going to have you set up for us. Our own country does have major areas where it is very clear that you can see ahead of the curve where it's going.
Right.
So Florida is a really sad example.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what we're going to be watching in this clip and why you did use it tonight at the Newman Center. You picked it to be one of those that this year you'll be featuring it on the Feast of St. Francis.
Sure. I think for a lot of us, when we think of climate change, we do think of something like the Carteret Islands, or we think of Africa or South America, but it's happening right here. Some of the places that are being impacted the most are those along the ocean, along the seashore, and we have a lot of seashore in the United States.
Yeah.
So this particular clip, again, tells a story about an individual who has seen changes over his short lifetime.
Let's watch the clip now. It's from Florida, and you're going to actually see the Archbishop speak, because he is in charge of this project. He is in charge of the Domestic Justice and Human Development Committee of the USCCB. But let's watch the fisherman explain his lot.
A seafood worker is a struggler. They're hard workers, but they get through life with basics. They're simple people. They live simple lives. I started oystering with my dad when I was 5 years old. When I was 13, I started oystering by myself, and I've done it ever since. It has been really tough in the last few years because of the changes in Apalachicola Bay. It's a love-hate relationship between the men and the bay.
Beginning around 2012, we really started to see a dramatic decline in the oyster populations in Apalachicola Bay. The primary driving factor that determines what can live there and what can't is the amount of salt in the water. We really had a serious drought period, and salinities were very high for a sustained time. Scientists have predicted that we will have a continued gradual rise in temperatures and that we will continue to see rising sea levels in our area. Those two factors are going to impact people and the ecology of our estuary systems.
Being a community that is remote, that doesn't have a lot of other economic engines, we are pretty vulnerable if something doesn't go as planned. Our seafood industry, our tourism industry, most of that is based on the environment, and there's no place else for people to work.
For the poor and marginalized, for those who are hungry, unemployed, uninsured, and uneducated, we pray. Hear our prayer, O Lord, and have mercy. When the environment changes, it has a great impact on people's lives. Vulnerable people are going to be affected by climate change everywhere in this country. And we need to help each other a lot.
The church is concerned about the environment. The extent that changes in the environment affect human beings, then those changes are moral issues. And as men and women of faith, we do have a responsibility to speak out on moral issues. We should be especially concerned of those who are most vulnerable. We have the opportunity to be their voice.
Here in Franklin County, we work to help the most vulnerable in our community.
Don't expect someone to ride in on a white horse and fix it. You can't duct tape it. You can't fix it on the short term. You have to provide a path and support for people to fix it themselves.
It's a hard life. I've considered leaving the bay and going elsewhere and looking for work, but my heart's not in it. I love this bay. I was raised on it. My father done it. My grandfather done it. And my youngest son loves the bay, and he's already oysters, and I'm struggling with trying to get him to seek a new avenue.
How did this video come to be? It was something that you had a company produce. How did you even pick that project and decide this is a great capsule of what we need to be aware of?
Well, I think partly because Archbishop Wensky has been so out front on this issue. He is, as you said, the chairman of the Domestic Policy Committee at the Bishops' Conference. So, part of it was, and he understands it because he lives in Miami. They understand sea level rise there. And we wanted to tell a story. And we wanted to show that delicate balance that is our created order. So, in the video they talk about there's been years of drought, or at least a good long season of drought in South Florida. So there's less fresh water running into the bay, so the bay gets more salt water into it, which makes sense. And then oysters they need a mix of fresh and salt water, and so that whole industry is suffering. And as sea levels rise, that's of course going to push the fresh water back a little bit further. So this very delicate balance of our ecology and how that impacts people's lives I thought was important to show.
And it does it, as you say, briefly, powerfully. These are the videos that people could appreciate
Right.
the importance, because it's not belabored. It's
Right.
just quickly told.
Right.
Speaking of quickly told, Laudato Si is this awesome, grand piece of work. How do you help us just break open a few major points in the final minutes? What did Pope Francis most give us?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, he really urges dialogue around this. Let's stop talking past each other and start talking to each other about the environment and about climate change in particular. I think he also says that there are these relationships that are incredibly important that are out of kilter right now. Our relationship with God, relationship with one another, and relationship with the earth. And all of those are connected. You can't separate out one from the other. How we relate to one another has a direct impact on how we're going to treat creation. And how we look at this gift of creation, as Father Martin said in the first video, if we see it as a gift, we'll treat it as a gift. But if we see it as something to be exploited, then that's what we'll do. And we'll exploit the environment, and that will likely lead to exploiting one another and not caring for one another. So those relationships are key. And then I think the third big theme that pops out for me is it's not just about dialogue, it's also about action. That we need to begin to, and he says there's an urgent need here to begin to move away from this very unsustainable lifestyle that frankly most of us in the United States live, and become to get more in solidarity with brothers and sisters around the world and with this beautiful gift of creation.
In our final minute, Dan, is there something that you just haven't had a chance to say, or you'd like to reiterate something for our viewers about the urgency of it and also the possibility of joining Catholic Climate Covenant and actually doing something?
Yeah, I guess that in the last minute I would like to say that this really does sound doom and gloom, but God has not abandoned us, as Pope Francis has said. So there's a really hopeful, there's lots that we can do and we should do it with joy. I think that's the wonderful thing about Pope Francis. He always has a smile on his face. So let's go about this task with joy and with love for one another, for God, and with creation.
You know, I can't thank Dan Misleh enough for having come all the way from the capital of our country by way of a meeting in Sacramento to add on to his visit to this state, a trip to Fresno. Thank you so much. Thank you for what Catholic Climate Covenant is doing all year long. And please visit that site, CatholicClimateCovenant.org. You will be amazed, and you will perhaps find for your parish and for your family and for yourself something concrete to do. I certainly hope so. God bless. Until next time, this is Jim Grant from Faithworks.